So you'll be pleased to know that this isn't going to be hosted by me. I'm going to go off and have a bit of lunch. But Alex Hughes, you come and joined us today. Tell us a little bit about this session you're going to be hosting.
Yeah, so this session is all about the changes that are happening to MCS. Some of you may be aware of the reform and the redevelopment that the scheme's gone through. So the aim of today's session is to hear about the transition to the redeveloped scheme from an installer's perspective and also from a certification body's perspective. So it'll be really valuable for anyone in the audience who is currently certified and they're looking on transitioning to the redeveloped scheme.
A few people said I need to be certified, but that's a different thing. I'm going to leave this in
get into that.
in your very capable hands. Right, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. I'm Alex Hughes, Head of Scheme at MCS, so I oversee the delivery of the certification scheme and work in close partnership with the certification bodies that are our delivery partners. So for those who aren't aware of what MCS is, so microgeneration certification scheme, and we are the UK's quality mark for small-scale renewables. So we set the standards for how installations should be designed and installed. There's a range of technologies covered under MCS. Top three that are installed are solar PV, battery storage, and heat pumps. So, as mentioned, today's session is all about the changes that are happening to MCS, and I'm pleased to be joined by representatives from an MCS-certified installer and their certification body to talk about their first-hand experience of going through the redeveloped scheme transition. So, before we move on to the questions, we'll start with some introductions. So, we've got Ethan from Alpha Electrical. Ethan, can you tell us a bit about your role within Alpha Electrical, a bit about the business, how long you've been certified?
My name's Ethan Godefroy, Director at Alpha Electrical and Volt Renewables. Small-sized electrical firm, about 6 guys, and we've been MCS certified for the last 2 years. Went on the redevelopment scheme earlier this year. We probably do about 100 installs a year, solar PV and battery. That's it.
Cool, thanks Ethan. And then we've got Gavin from the IEA. Gavin, can you tell the audience a bit about your role within the IEA?
Yeah, certainly, Alex. Thank you. I'm Gavin Dickinson, Accreditation Manager for the IEA. We were one of the first certification bodies that were accredited for the redeveloped scheme with UCAS, and one of the first to deliver the scheme. We've got circa 200 installer members, and around 25% of those already onto the redeveloped scheme.
Great, thank you. So kind of just to set a bit of context, so since 2023, MCS has been working on redeveloping the installer scheme, and the objective of these reforms was to place quality and consumer protection at the heart of the scheme. So the scheme has been developed in close consultation with industry, so we were pleased with the engagement we got when we went through the consultation process, and really pleased particularly with the engagement that we got from installers. So when we went through the broader consultation process on the proposals, 53% of those respondents were actually MCS certified installers, so we're really pleased that installer feedback on what's working well, what's not working well with the MCS scheme has really shaped these reforms. So households across the UK, as part of these reforms, will benefit from enhanced consumer protections. Some of the things within that include a new accessible complaints management function that MCS has developed, and also new requirements for financial protections, which kind of sit in the broader consumer protection puzzle. And the aim of everything is giving everyone confidence in small-scale renewables. From an installer perspective, the objective of the reforms has been about simplification. So as part of the assessment and certification regime that an installer goes through, we've wanted to shift the focus onto what we call delivered quality, which is less focus on back office systems and paperwork and more focus on what has actually been delivered to the consumer in the field. As part of that, there's also been changes to the assessment model and how many assessments an installer will get a year from their certification body. At the moment, with the older scheme, it's one assessment per year, irrespective of size and complexity of a business or history of compliance. So as part of these changes, we're introducing a risk-based surveillance model. And what's great about that is it will reward consistently compliant installers with less assessments. And then for those installers with a history of non-compliance, we can target our certification body assessor resources there. So we're in the midst of a transition. We've currently got 4 certification bodies now offering the redeveloped scheme, IAA being the first one that launched their offer, and we've got a lot of installers moving over onto the new scheme week by week. So in terms of the questions, we'll be hearing from Ethan's perspective as an installer, what it was like to go through that transition, and then we'll hear from Gavin from an IAA perspective, what's changed for IAA as an MCS certification body, and also what support does the IAA offer to installers going through this process. So moving on to the first question then. So Ethan, you transitioned to the redeveloped scheme a couple of months ago. Can you start by talking kind of going into that process? What were your initial expectations?
Yeah, I suppose when it was first introduced to us, it's that initial feeling of dread where you think, there's going to be some massive changes and it's going to be a real sort of sticky process getting through. But after having talks with Gavin and the IEA, it was a really simple process that was put towards us, and something that going forward is going to make everything easier and simpler for us. So after the initial chat and once Gav told me that, we were happy to kind of move forward with the redevelopment scheme.
So it sounded like there was maybe some initial reservation there about it being quite a difficult process. I mean, I'm getting the sense then that it wasn't, and it's kind of pleasantly surprised you in that respect.
Yeah, well, I say, most people think change is bad, don't they? You kind of think, oh, it's something else, and it's actually that the whole process is really simple. If you're doing the right things already, you've got all the right processes and systems in place. It was pretty seamless, and going forwards with us being lower risk based company, it's going to be less time being audited. So time is money at the end of the day, isn't it? So less of that, the better.
Yeah, of course. And then Gavin, from the IA's perspective, I mean, as you're seeing a lot more installers moving across to the redeveloped scheme, are there any particular common queries that are cropping up time and time again, and also maybe some misconceptions? We talked about one there about, it being quite a bit of a burden going through the process. Is that cropping up as a theme?
Absolutely. I think one of the most questions we get is related to time frames and how long it actually takes to get through to the redeveloped scheme. Because now obviously MCS do further checks involved, it isn't just about the certification body anymore. There's been a interaction with MCS on their scheme checks also. I think a lot of the misconceptions were around the lack of audit. People weren't aware of what the audit was going to look like. There was a focus on delivered quality rather than focus on the audit. But to put that misconception to bed, of course, there is still an audit, because we focus now a little bit further on competencies, design, handover, the really important things that help to deliver that quality on site.
Yeah, so it's all about those outcomes rather than how
absolutely.
good kind of your quality management system is. So then focusing more on the actual onboarding journey, starting with you, Ethan, what was that experience of the application process like?
Yeah, so like I said, we were approached first off and told how the scheme, what entailed on the new scheme. Once we said we wanted to go ahead with it, we were sent audit checklist, just so you know yourself that you're ready for the audit. And like I say, if you've got most of the things in place and you're doing it all already, a lot of it's already there. It's just like, a few tweaks to some of those things. And then, within a week we had a desktop audit and then a site assessment as well. And then after that, we were straight onto the scheme.
And then in terms of kind of timescales around that and resources needed, like how much preparation did you need to kind of do to be kind of assessment ready, I suppose?
Yeah, well, like I said, if you're doing the right things already, a lot of the sort of footprint's already there. We use a QMS system, which is, a set I think is essential, because it's constantly, you can constantly check with that system and make sure you're doing the right things, and it gives you all the documents and everything you need, and you just got to work out how to file it and that sort of stuff. And so that's a big help to get you set up for that. And obviously just talking to your certification body as well, just if you've got the questions before it's going to happen, You know, everyone in the IEA was really helpful, and I say with the audit checklist, it was made it really simple to make sure you were ready for that sort of step going forwards.
Yeah, and it's great to hear kind of the support that IEA is offering to installers going through this process. So, Gavin, in terms of any barriers cropping up, are you spotting any particular barriers to the transition, and what is IEA doing in response to those barriers to kind of offer installers more support or kind of expedite them going through the transition?
Well, the IEA's USP is we're all technically competent, we're all technically capable, we're all from the tools, we're all from the background, and you have direct contact with us via telephone, via email. We offer guidance, support, advice. Of course, we can't do it for you, we're not consultants, but definitely want to be able to offer people advice and guidance to ensure that they've got all of the tools that they need to get through the job.
Yeah, and I think that checklist approach sounds great. You know, what are the sequence of steps you need to go through as an installer to be ready to move over? So now, Ethan, you've moved over. You know, in terms of Alpha Electrical running the business under the redeveloped scheme, what feels different from the older scheme, from a business point of view?
Well, now with the customer commitment document you've brought out as well, you know, we're not required now to have that external consumer code. Everything's kind of been brought into it. So that's streamlined a lot of that process and obviously cost. And our QMS system is now free through the IAA as well with REMBI. So, you know, we've lost, you know, 1,500 quid's worth of fees already. So, and then obviously going forwards with it being risk-based and installers being rewarded for good installs, as well as their paperwork, obviously, then it's you know, it's going to make our life so much easier and just streamlined a lot of those processes.
Yeah, and it's obviously time and cost savings in that respect. And again, you know, that was the whole intention of the changes: less fragmented, less organisations to deal with, and make it simpler. And then anything you're seeing different from like customer interactions? I know you've mentioned about like the customer commitment. Are you finding that more and more consumers are kind of understanding the value of MCS a bit more?
Yeah, well, now it's all been brought into that one thing, you know. There's not that confusion before where it was like, oh, you know, you've got the MCS accreditation there, and then you've got an external consumer code, and they're kind of asking why is that separate? And so now it's obviously a lot more simpler for the customer. So, but we're, you know, there's, like Gaz said, there's still, you've still got to do that paperwork. The paperwork is still present. It's, you know, and it is very important for the customer and obviously for your own sort of files. But you know, just being rewarded for having, you know, good installs all the time. It should have better customer outcomes going forwards. You know, if you've got that time to really put into, you know, good install work and good handover package and all that sort of stuff going forwards, if you're getting rewarded for that by MCS, the better that'll get and the better the customer outcomes.
Yeah, it's a real driver in that respect. And then probably a question for both of you. You know, is anything surprised you? Like, Ethan, has anything surprised you in terms of the process you went through or the outcome of going through it? And then Gavin, anything that surprised you as we're going through this transition more broadly?
Well, yeah, what surprised me was how easy it was. Like I said at the start, you know, when you're told, oh, there's a big change and you've got to do this, you've got to move on to a new scheme, and it was so simple. And it's, you know, like I said before, if you're doing all the right things, and you've got all the right processes, and the customer's at the front view of what you're doing, then you know it's seamless for anyone who's on that old scheme to go forwards and you know, you've got to do it anyway, so you might as well do it sooner rather than later. And it's not, you know, it's not something that's going to be distressing for anyone. It's if you're doing the right things, it's going to be seamless.
Yeah, and you know, to be quite frank, better to get it out the way and reap the benefits in the short term. I mean, we've got a deadline of March next year for all the installers to kind of get over, and obviously an installer may have to do a bit of preparation before then, but I think, you know, we need to try and work towards that deadline. And then, yeah, anything from you, Gavin, in terms of anything that's surprising you?
I think what surprised me the most was the delay process with the installer members. And I think that lends in exactly what Ethan's just said there. I think a lot of people are a little bit worried about change and they don't really want to adapt and get on with some things. But actually, it's so simple, the process. The process is more simple now than it was in the beginning. We've looked at different ways of simplifying the processes further. And like Ethan said, he was already set up for MCS, and it's a simplified process now. So if anything, people should be jumping on. I was surprised on the delay in certain installers wanting to come on board, to be honest.
And do you think it's just because installers are busy businesses and maybe they don't fully realise the benefits?
For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah. And from the benefits side, I mean, we've talked about a few cost savings, time savings. Anything else, Ethan, that you're feeling from an installer perspective that is a real benefit?
Well, obviously, like I said before, the cost, having the less external memberships, having it all simplified, dealing with one company now, which we do, IAA for all our guarantees, the QMS with the ETE platform, which Remby as well, and it just makes you like. Whereas before, it was 100 things in different places and try and tie them all together. Now everything's simplified. Your audits should be simpler. If you're doing great installs as well, you're getting rewarded on that spec, as well as just having your paperwork at the same time.
Yeah, and I think from the audit perspective, I know we spoke about like quality management systems and things, and I think it's more around not just having a quality management system that sits there and you don't do much with. I think it's having processes and controls that will allow you to consistently deliver quality. So again, back to you, Ethan. So from like an operational perspective, when you were preparing to transition, in terms of your business processes, competency of staff, etc., were there any big changes that you needed to make? Because I know we've got new documents that you need to comply with, but what were kind of the big changes that you had to navigate?
Yeah, to be fair for us, because although we're a team of 6 electricians, I mainly do all the installs, and none of them drift into the solar side. So a lot of training matrix and that sort of stuff, is in place for when we grow and have more people on that side, on the MCS side. But for me, it's quite, and I imagine there's a lot of smaller companies. We didn't have to have there wasn't too much change in that. We already had that sort of stuff in place. And moving forwards, obviously looking at the new MCS documents and that sort of stuff. It was just getting in line with that.
Yeah, so there hasn't been too much disruption. And then, Gavin, from IA's perspective as an MCS certification body, how have things changed for you as a certification body?
Well, we run risk analysis reports now on all installer members going forward. Like Ethan's just been saying, his risk analysis came out as a low risk, which puts him on the lower surveillance rate. So we carry out that. Our relationship with MCS has grown a little bit because we're in much greater communications now. We've got MCS's certification body manager, Jim. And we have that link now. We've got that control. We've got that oversight. We've got that communication. It's more of a team effort focus kind of relationship that I think we have now.
Yeah, and I can echo that. I think we are a lot more collaborative, and it does help with that oversight element, which is crucial as part of the certification framework. And because it's now MCS doing checks on these businesses, from like a business probity point of view, anything we pick up that maybe IAA haven't picked up, we share that information. Above and beyond the assessments that IAA do as a certification body, we also have an assessment team in-house, and I think we're getting better at sharing that information. And I think it's just about knowing the installer businesses a lot better, because when you've got that intelligence, of course it can inform a risk judgment and then benefit an installer from an assessment point of view. So we're probably nearing to the end now. So, we might have a lot of installers in the audience that are looking to go through this process. If you could offer one piece of advice to an installer, what would that be? Start with you, Ethan.
Just get on with it, because you're going to have to do it sooner rather than later. It's honestly, it's going to make, before you have to renew those external memberships or anything like that, you want to get involved in this, and it's just going to streamline all your processes and all your costs, and hopefully over time, will save you time, which is obviously money for your business. So yeah, it'd be, just push on with it, and you know, if you've got questions, obviously your certification body will answer any of them. And
Well, that depends on who the certification body is.
well, the IIA will answer any questions for you.
I echo exactly what Ethan's just said. I think engage with your certification body, irrelevant on who that is, sooner rather than later. There are extra checks to go involved, so there is a time scale involved in there as well. But get on with it. What are you waiting for? Sooner rather than later. That's the best piece of advice I can give you.
Thanks both. And then last question is a bit of a forward look and to close. What aspect of the redeveloped scheme do you think is going to have the biggest positive impact on the broader small-scale renewables sector?
From my perspective, the risk analysis, that profile allows better quality delivered on site. It rewards decent installs, which decent installs lead to, consumer confidence. Consumer protection, of course, is the centre of the scheme now. So again, increasing industry confidence. And I think historically our industries have suffered somewhat with confidence. And I'm hopeful that the redeveloped scheme focuses the installer a little better to ensure a delivered quality install on site, increasing confidence overall.
Thanks, Gav. Ethan?
Yeah, well, very similar to what Gav was saying. It's that sort of risk-based audit, which over time, as the years go on, I think it will sieve out the sort of the bad installers from the good ones. And that's only going to be good for the industry as the renewable sector grows bigger and bigger every year. As an electrician who takes a lot of pride in their installs, to see a lot of bad installs from people that are MCS-certified, or hopefully that's going to sieve them out as it goes through, because they'll get stricter audits.
It will.
Audits, yeah. They might be on, quarterly audits or something like that, to really make sure that all of the industry is in shape. So I think, bringing that through and as well having that sort of customer commitment, consumer code, buried into it. It feels like the installer's obviously been listened to. There was a lot of fees before in different places, and now it's kind of all into one set. So, it's only going to be good for the industry, the redevelopment scheme.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you in terms of the enforcement element, because the scheme often gets that criticism that we're not doing enough in terms of enforcement. And if an installer goes out and sees an MCS-certified installation that's not compliant, it doesn't give confidence that the scheme is working. So yeah, I agree. I think kind of the targeted approach in terms of assessments will allow us to focus CB assessor resources, and it'll just give us more kind of intelligence that we can actually learn from. Okay, so we've come to a close. I think we have finished early, but I think we do have time for questions, if anyone in the audience has got a question. Anyone? Oh, I'll come over with the mic.
So my question, I think, is mostly for the certification body. So under the redevelopment scheme, you could potentially have more audits, especially if you're a large installer. So my question is, apart from the renewal, which you pay for every year, which is the audit, will the installers also be charged for any additional audits that will be carried out throughout the year? For example, instead of having one audit a year, you now potentially could have 4 audits a year. Will those 4 audits incur extra charges, or are they included under the membership?
No, there will be extra charges. It's essentially a reward scheme for good installers. So you will see your certification body less. You will have 1 audit every 3 years if you're a good installer, and that is a reward. I don't like to use the word punishment, but it's a good word.
Yeah, that's the incentive, isn't it? Yeah, be compliant, less assessments. Anyone else? Last call? No? Okay. Well, just to close, thank you to Ethan and Gavin for the support with the panel today. Thank you all for coming to listen. Again, I think we're really proud of what kind of the redeveloped scheme is set out to achieve. And yeah, we're looking forward to all installers having moved over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex, Ethan, and Gavin. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Just to say that at 1:45, I'm going to be joined by MP Martin McCluskey, who's going to come and have a little fireside chat. It's probably been quite a busy week for him so far, I suspect. So come back for that in about, that's all right, thank you, about 15 minutes' time.